Welcome to this week's live video. The IMF has decided to get serious and start criticizing China's export-led growth model. Uh, this is quite unusual for the fund, which tends to couch its words when it comes to major economies and China and China in particular. Uh, So what set off the IMF? Well, obviously, we have the fact that China set a new record with a $1.2 trillion trade surplus last year. Um, the fund estimates that now China's overall current account surplus is at 3.3% of GDP. The figure actually may be a little bit higher, and that is more than double the 1.5% of GDP that the IMF had projected for the 2024. The IMF called that figure, quote, excessively large. This is causing, quote, adverse spillovers to trading partners, the IMF said. With almost a third of growth last year from net exports, China's growth model has, quote, triggered overcapacity concerns, and that could spur trade retaliation from other countries. And as the IMF put it, put China's exports at risk. Um, Exports from China are getting a boost from, quote, real depreciation of the yuan or the renminbi, and the IMF said that they estimate that the renminbi is about 16% undervalued. The IMF also took took a look at and cast a critical eye on China's use of industrial subsidies for its priority industrial sectors. Um, the IMF says that support for priority areas, things like robotics, electric vehicles, green energy, the list goes on, amounted to about 4% of GDP in 2023. While conceding that it's hard to do cross-country comparisons, the IMF said that the European Union was at about half that figure, at only about 1.5% in terms of the proportion of industrial subsidies as part of GDP. Um, the IMF annual report on China used the phrase external imbalances more than 10 times in this report. External imbalances were not mentioned at all in the 2024 edition. They also expressed serious concern about China's dropping prices and mentioned the words deflation or deflationary more than 60 times. China needs more expansionary policies, the IMF told Beijing. It also needed to find ways to boost its ailing property sector in order to, quote, rebuild consumer confidence. China needs to change its growth model, which, quote, requires significant cultural and economic policy transformation. Transitioning to a consumption-led growth model should be the overarching priority, they said. Um, the IMF's China representative, Zheng Xinjiang, disagreed with this assessment, perhaps not surprisingly. He said that China's high export growth in 2025 was instead primarily driven by competitiveness and innovation, not by export subsidies or by a depreciating yuan in his assessment. He also said it was in part driven by front-loading efforts by Chinese exporters to get ahead of U.S. tariffs. Um, the timing of this IMF report and the tone of this report is important, coming just weeks before the National People's Congress announces China's GDP growth target for 2026. Remember the Liang Hui, Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, and the National People's Congress always start at the beginning of March, first week of March. So that's it for this week. Stay tuned or tune in again at the same time next Thursday.